3.
Good morning. Cheryl here from Joyly. I just want to get my nice screen up here to show that we're actually doing a live broadcast today. So I would like to welcome our guests today. We have with us Laura Hess and Sharon Daly, and both of you look beautiful today. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's a pleasure.
And as you know, we are having an amazing conversation today about social wellness. So to me, social wellness is about connectedness and belonging. And so in this new time, Laura and I were just talking off camera about the opportunities that we're having to connect with people from all over the country that we haven't maybe ever connected with before. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's been really fun and very easy to connect. So I'm super excited about this. So maybe before we get started with my lots of questions, always for such amazing women as such as yourself, maybe Laura, you could just start and tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you in the world? What's the temperature where you are?
That's a really good question. I haven't even checked today. In the house, it's probably 78. And I am in Vegas, so we're expecting heat, but we're going to be in the low 90s today, I believe. Haven't quite hit those triple digits, but they're on the way.
Yes.
Definitely on the way. I am a coach and have been coaching since 1994, among the early adopters of the profession. And I love the work that I do, and recently, recent to me is like years. so within the last 7 years, I have chosen to work only with women, and joy is my focus.
Okay.
A number of years ago, I wrote a course or a checklist called "Does Your Life Pass the Joy Test?" and that's where I work with women, is to bring that joy into their life in every realm of their life.
Beautiful. Okay, yeah. And Sharon?
Yes, so I am coming to you from what has turned out to be a beautiful spring in North Carolina. And I feel like over the last number of years, we've gone from winter to summer and no spring. And North Carolina is actually quite popular for fall and spring weather when we get it. And I was thinking to myself, I don't know if we've actually had great spring weather, or is it because we're all at home and I have a chance to notice it? Either way, very excited to be able to enjoy the spring weather for the most part, as we're all finding our new way through this odd reality. A little bit of background: I spent 20 years as a television broadcast journalist. And once I had children, it turns out that those schedules do not meld at all. I worked either 2 to midnight or 2 a.m. to noon as a broadcaster. And that, as you can imagine and know, is insanely difficult when you have children. So I made the leap in 2008 to start my own company.
Okay.
And the first thing we did was coaching, as in media coaching, presentation, public speaking coaching. A lot of what we call the power skills, not the soft skills, the power skills. So now it's been 12 years in business, and we're still going strong. We have 38 employees and have managed, thank goodness, to be able to make payroll during all of this. And so that's a little bit about me.
Very nice. Well, I've been reading about both of you, and you both have so much to offer. And so let's get right to it here. So my first question to you, well, before we do that, may I just ask you, please, to take a deep breath with me. Just hold it in for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale. And one more. Just trying to get centered with me and feel the most amazing connection and vibration between us, because we have a lot to share with the world, and let's just send them all joy. And Laura, let me ask you first, while your eyes are closed, or if you could just take a moment and share with me something in your life that was joyful, like maybe take one more deep breath if you can, and just recall something that was like, oh, that just made me so joyful.
That's easy.
Okay.
The beings that I live with, my dogs and my husband. the especially right now, when we're living with a person, if that person is somebody that you're really connected to, we're very fortunate. And I don't think either of us has been out of the house alone since all of this started. Because we just don't want to. But the blessing comes in having a relationship where that's true. And then our dogs, we have 3 of them now. They're all rescues. And anybody who has animals knows the joy that they bring to you. And every time we rescue one and it comes home, there's just a tremendous sense of well-being, of joyfulness, joy in the heart that happens. And how can it not?
I can just feel you being so centered, and that everything in that your words just probably goes to your clients like so easily. I mean, and I bet they just tap into that with you. I'm just really sensing that. Yeah.
I think that's probably one of my superpowers.
Superpower.
Yeah.
All right. And Sharon, what comes to your mind when you're thinking of joy?
I will say that over the last few months, especially since the holidays, since Christmas time, I was starting to feel a lot of angst because my firstborn, my eldest son, is a graduating senior from high school. This is the end of the road of him being at home with us and under our wings, per se, because he's, of course, going away to college. And it had gotten, life is so busy, and I'm sure that all of you all can relate to this. We're working hard, we're tearing out the door early in the morning and grabbing all our stuff, commuting, working all day, for my family, picking up the kids, probably doing a drive-through dinner as we're flying off to soccer practice. And then my older son had a job. He was working 4 days a week. And frankly, when they become 17, 18 years old, they want to be around their friends. They're not hanging out with mom and dad. And so we had not been able to spend very much time with Connor before he goes off. And so frankly, this forced quarantine, being home, it may be mortifying for him, but it's sure bringing me a lot of joy.
Have you shared this with Connor? Does he know how you feel and how excited
he does?
Yeah.
He does. I mean, we've had more family game nights. We've gone on great walks with our dog every afternoon. All these things that had been lost and long gone from the normal pace of life. Yeah. So I'm really finding joy in spending that time with him, especially before he goes off to school.
That's wonderful. Well, they always come back. Mine are, 32, 26, and 24. So you can never have enough time, but you'll see him a lot.
I hope so.
Oh, yeah. So really, social wellness is really about relationships. Would you agree, both of you? And so both of your businesses are about building relationships. And so I think that we always can learn from the experts about how to do that. We can all get better at that. So my first question is, how are you staying connected right now, Laura, with the relationships that you've established in the past, and also creating new ones?
Video conferencing is playing a very big role in all of our lives these days. And yet it's something that we need to be very careful about, because you just get overloaded with video. There was an article that just went through New York Times, I believe, on how video can impact you in a negative way, as wonderful as it is to see. But video is playing a very big role in how we're connecting. And I think that, like Sharon said, it's bringing people together right now in ways that we never expected or never had the opportunity for before.
Exactly.
Being stuck in the same house with people who were too busy to spend time together and have dinner together. Mm-hmm. And now we're being forced to do that. And, it can be a blessing in many ways. And hopefully we're making it that. But it's also reaching out to people that we haven't been in contact with for a while. It's a great opportunity because the chances are good you're going to find them at home.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're
I've been hearing about so many amazing birthday parties for moms and dads and people long lost cousins catching up and things like that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, in my family, I am a bit estranged from my family, but lately everybody's been getting together on Zoom, and it's one great big family gathering, and that never happened before this. So
that makes me so happy. That's beautiful. Yeah. How about you, Sharon? How are you staying connected with business relationships and, personal as well?
Yeah, on the business side, we do spend an awful lot of time on Zoom calls. And one thing that we actually taught a webinar today, best practices for virtual meetings.
Okay.
Because a lot of people initially, probably 6 weeks ago when all of this started, people were joining these Zoom calls, but blocking their camera. And so all we were seeing was a name. And we have now made the request, especially for our clients and our colleagues, like, look, we need to see you. We are craving connection. And we know from research that to be able to see each other in the eyes and see our see our facial expressions and understand the tone of your voice and matching all of that, it's imperative that we be able to see each other on these calls. And other than feeding the human connection, the other part is you can read the room better if you're able to see one another. And then also you're less likely to multitask if you're all looking at each other rather than, checking email or looking at your phone or something. So we have been pretty insistent on asking that everyone turn on their cameras during those meetings. On a personal level, we did a family Zoom call for the first time ever, and it really did feel different than a phone call, just being able to see each other.
Yeah.
Sitting on the couch with the dogs on the lap and eating, and like we hung out together in a Zoom call for about an hour and a half. We had such a great time. And then in my neighborhood, I live at the end of a cul-de-sac, and we have the circle. And so my neighbors and I, for the last 3 Fridays in a row, have been bringing out our lawn chairs, socially distancing, and having cul-de-sac cocktails.
Oh my, that sounds fabulous. Yeah. That's beautiful. So on that note, Sharon, as long as you're up here, maybe you could, based on what you taught this morning, what are the tools? Like when we're sitting here connecting and talking and our phones are off and we're paying attention, what visual clues can we be looking at? Like, are you staring into people's eyes? Are you using your hand gestures? What are some ways that feel natural to you, or do you encourage?
It's actually a lot of the same way that you read a room in person. Mm-hmm. You can see when someone's checked out. And even if they're not looking at a phone or their computer screen, you can see when you've lost them. And so it's important when you're planning your meeting virtually that you have a strong agenda where you've mixed in a point where you can stop and say, hey, does anybody have any feedback or any questions? Or if there's been someone really quiet, Laura, I'd love to get your feedback on that. So doing actual call outs.
Okay.
So that's one way to do it. Another way is most of these, we're using Zoom a lot, have reactions where you can actually raise a little virtual hand. You also can, as the meeting host, you can put up polls. Okay. And that's a nice way to break it. Because to hear one voice for too long, if it's a meeting, it's supposed to be a conversation, not a long monologue. And so encouraging that interaction.
That's wonderful. Laura, do you have anything to add to that, or should I go on? May I go on to the next question?
No, I think that Sharon covered it all. I think that virtual meetings are the same as live. Remembering that people need to be engaged, and everybody has a different learning style and communication style. And as the facilitator, remembering to use them all and be inclusive.
Yeah. So excellent. Thank you. For social wellness, for me, I think that the more fresh air I get in overwhelm, the better facilitator I am, and the more well-rounded and energized I am. So Laura, what are you doing to kind of, you already talked about overwhelmed just a little bit, but and too much video. So what are you doing in your life to kind of set those boundaries? So yes, we need to be socially connected, but we also need to take care of ourselves. So what could you say to that?
Taking care of myself has never been an issue in my life.
Good. That's great.
But, you know, I make sure, and I get up from my office desk on a regular basis throughout the day. I mean, we work at home, so how far is the coffee pot, right? But instead of bringing the coffee pot into my office, I make sure that it's someplace else. So I actually have to get up and go fill my cup, which gives me movement and takes me away from the screen, which every psychologist will tell you, you know, it's a 50-10 split. Sit at your computer and work for 50 minutes, get up and do something else for 10. And we're making sure and getting sunlight, at least until it hits triple digits.
Yeah.
We'll sit out in the sun and just take advantage of Vegas spring.
I love it.
And watch the boys. I mean, how much better can it be than watching the dogs play and they make us laugh.
Yes.
There's nothing healthier than that.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So, yeah.
Okay, next question, Sharon. You really talk a lot about amplifying your voice. So I'm curious, how does that differ in video and maybe just in general when you're speaking about your voice on social media, if there's any tips or tricks for us right now?
Sure. The first thing is authenticity, and I think you hear about that a lot, but social media is just filled with so much fake and you know, people who are putting stuff out there as if they live this magical life, and it's just not real. And so the first thing is making sure you're very authentic with what that persona is, what your personal brand is that you're putting out there, meaning you got to be able to share the failures as well as the successes. And that's when people are going to tune in and listen better, when they believe you. That's the whole thing. If they see you, you know, people can spot and hear fake very quickly.
Yeah.
So if you're true and earnest in the kinds of storytelling that you're doing on social media, or if you're doing any kind of presentations virtually, that you've just got to be the full 100% you, for sure. And then go ahead.
I feel like you've been really public with this in your life.
Yes.
Right? You've shared all the ups and downs.
And that's, you know, I think that every person has major life lessons that if they are willing to open up and share some of them, you're going to bless people. If you keep doing it enough, there are going to be people who come back and say, oh my gosh, I heard you speak about your breast cancer and I skipped my mammogram last year and I made an appointment right away. And it turns out this is exactly what happened. I had done a presentation for a company, and as a part of my resiliency story, it's making sure that you are the CEO of your own health. And my breast cancer was not caught in a regular mammogram, only a 3D mammogram saw it. And after the presentation, a week later, I got an email from a woman in the audience who said, I had skipped my mammogram. I went last week and I requested a 3D mammogram and I have stage 2 breast cancer. Oh my gosh. She said, I would have not gone had I not heard your message.
There you are.
There it is, right there. The other most impactful thing I think I've done recently is I was lucky enough to be able to do a TEDx talk in December on a pretty heavy subject, but the amount of feedback I've gotten since then has made all of it worth it. And it's how to speak to bereaved parents. Because most people don't know how to do it. I certainly didn't know how to do it until I became one. So I've gotten so much great feedback from other bereaved parents and other people who said, thank you for giving me the language I needed to be able to comfort my friend, comfort my sister, daughter, husband, whatever it might be.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh, that's really awesome. So Laura, when you are involved in your masterminds, that's what you do mostly every day, all day long. Is that right? So how are you supporting people in their journeys to stay connected socially? Are you hearing is there problems, complications? So are you creating solutions for them when it comes to staying connected and continuing on with their businesses and being productive?
The continuing on with their businesses at this point doesn't seem to be the issue. I think that most of the women that I work with at this point are self-employed and solopreneurs. So they're finding themselves stuck at home and even more isolated than a woman who works at home anyway, because she can't get out. One of the groups that I run right now, and my groups only meet every other week. So what they said to me was, look, let's do a mastermind group at our regular times, but on the in-between, let's still get together and just have conversations.
Nice.
So we keep the connection going, because video is fine, but it doesn't replace the physical let's get together for coffee thing. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
But if it's all we've got, let's make sure we're making the most of it. And so my support for them comes in creating the space that they're able to do that. And because mastermind groups being what they are, they have each other to lean on and to really work through the issues that are coming up for everybody in business, not just the women. But the working at home and how it kind of goes to balancing a media job with raising kids. It's how do you raise the kids and work at home at the same time? And, the landscape has changed, but everybody's experiencing it. So working on creating a whole new set of best practices of how do we manage business in this current environment. And what are we going to do once we're able to open the door again and get out of the house?
Yeah. And I'm sensing that you really are connected to your clients. Like you really need to know who they are to best support them. Seems like you have really good skills to tap into that and support them.
My job as a coach, if I don't know my client well, I'm not serving them. So yeah, for me, I need to, and that's most of my clients are with me for years. I don't do short term. So, you start working with somebody for any period of time and you get to know them really well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Sharon, I am intrigued by something that you said online, a little story that I read that happened 27 years ago. And one of the comments or quotes that you referred to in that story was, our world gets smaller each day with the connections we make. So maybe you could just refresh us with a story and then just share how our world is so small. Like I'm running into people online that it's somebody just this morning introduced me to somebody that I knew for years in Orange County 10 years ago. And I never really connected with her. And now I'm having a long conversation with her this afternoon. I can't wait. I'm so excited. So go ahead. Tell me about the story.
Are you talking about the USO?
Yes.
Yes. So I was lucky enough when I was in my late teens, early 20s to be in an all-girl group, singing, dancing, kind of an all-American show. We were called the Florida Girls. And we worked for the Department of Defense's USO program. A lot of people don't realize that there are groups traveling all over the world all the time, entertaining U.S. men and women in service. And we're not the celebrity ones, like the Bob Hope shows and the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. There's a whole non-celebrity cohort of entertainers, which ours was. So in the 4th of July in 1991, after we had won the first Persian Gulf War, we were brought over to the Middle East to do a 2-week victory tour. And on the 4th of July itself of 1991, we were on top in the middle of the Persian Gulf on the USS Nimitz, performing our show for 5,000 US military members. It was like, that's the biggest rock star moment I've had. It was so cool. And it was, it was just an amazing experience to be able to do that. Now, fast forward 27 years later, my little guy, who is 12 now, this was a couple of years ago. He was in fourth grade. And at the beginning of fourth grade, he would come home and tell us all about his teacher. Mr. Metzger did this. Mr. Metzger did that. Mr. Metzger did this. And he always had these great stories. And one day we're driving home and he says, Mom, when Mr. Metzger was on the USS Nimitz, blah, 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 blah. I said, oh, Mr. Metzger was on the USS Nimitz? And he said, yeah, I think that's what he called it. Nimitz, something like that. I said, oh, okay. Well, the next day, Pierce happened to have an event at school. So I went right up to Mr. Metzger and I said, so I hear you were on the USS Nimitz. He said, I was. I said, can you tell me when? He was on the USS Nimitz from 89 to 92. And I said, well. I also was on the USS Nimitz for one day in 1991. And he said, oh my gosh, were you a Florida girl? I said, yes, I was. And he goes, I was the guy in the front row with no shirt on.
Did you remember him?
I was like, are you kidding me?
Oh.
Well, I didn't. There were 5,000 men on the ship, and it was 110 degrees out. So none of the guys actually had shirts on.
Oh, okay.
But I said, are you kidding? And he immediately ran and got what is like a yearbook that he had from his time on the Nimitz, and he opened it up right into the middle. And there is a picture of my group performing and him and his pals in the front row watching and cheering us on.
Oh my gosh.
What? How crazy is that? And he ends up being my son's teacher. Just unbelievable. You never know. We are really so small. Our connections are really much closer than we can imagine.
Yes. And that's such a beautiful story. Thank you for
Great
sharing.
story.
Thank you.
And Laura, to you too, why are relationships, maybe seemingly more powerful right now? Like, stories like that, things, if you're open to them, lots can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And-
I think especially because of what we're experiencing right now, we're hungry for those connections. I mean, how do we create them? We're hungry for them. We're craving the physical, but we can't have it. So how do we create something that can substitute? And there's stories like that all over.
Beautiful. Any comments about what's going to happen when we can go outside and we're still craving the physical? Are we hugging?
Well, I have to confess, we dropped groceries off to one of my sisters here recently, and we did hug, even though we don't share a house. But it is what it is, and we're huggers. I mean, we just are. We need that.
I feel the power in that hug was probably 10 times more than before.
Yeah. It was.
Really.
And I think there's going to be more of that. I mean, some people are still going to be, doing elbow shakes or whatever they're doing these days. But if I'm going to be with somebody, I want to be with somebody. And that includes the hug.
I love that. Sharon, do you have any stories like that? Any connections you've made recently?
Well, we are being very deliberate with our office. We actually just sent out an all-staff memo today because it appears here in North Carolina that we may be able to head back to our offices in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And so we are instituting some very specific things so we can do it safely. We all miss each other so much. Yesterday, we did a virtual happy hour with our colleagues just because we really missed them. And we had a big client win and we wanted to celebrate. And so we did, and we actually had a great time. But we look forward to being able to connect in person again. There's just no replacement for that.
That's beautiful.
Well, and I think that also just to tag on to that, it's not even just the getting together again. It's getting together without a mask, because we go out doing our shopping and we're all wearing masks. So all we're seeing is people's eyes. And when we shop, we make friends with everybody. So we're always in conversation with people when we're shopping. But now we can't see their faces, and the connection might be there sort of, but there's still that barrier that's there. So I'm really looking forward to being able to see people's faces.
That's beautiful. Yes, just fostering genuine connections, I think, is what we can all ask the world to do. So I'm excited that Joyly is part of the platform of doing that. People are saying that, this chair that I'm sitting at, even though it's, I want to take the air out of the chair, because it's really about the people that are going to be sitting in it, that are going to share miraculous stories about this time. So I would just encourage everyone to keep going and sharing and connecting and meeting new people and friends on Facebook and reaching out and making phone calls and, just saying, who are you? Everybody's appreciative of that. Laura, do you have any final words you'd like to say to our listening audience today about joy itself, or just about what's going on in your life?
Find the joy in the moment. It's there. Even through all of this, the joy exists, and it starts from inside. So let it shine. We don't want to lose touch with that spark.
I love that. Yeah. And anything else, Sharon?
Yeah, I think it all begins with our approach. Everything, how we approach our day, how we approach a meeting, how we approach a difficult situation. And we have control over that. And don't let the situation have a control over you. So with that in mind, approach it with joy. And looking for the best in whatever it is, rather than looking for the negative. And I think that surely can help spread some joy.
Beautiful. What a fabulous time today, young ladies. I appreciate your wisdom and your expertise. And I just think that these videos are really, people that are watching them are saying that they really just feel the essence of who we are as humans. And so human connection is what it's all about. So thank you very much. And you have a grand day. Any website you'd like to share quick, Laura, and or a program that you're working on right now?
I'm working on pulling a group of women together for a mastermind group that it's similar to Rachel
Hollis?
No, the one that did the Happiness Project.
Oh, well, Gretchen Rubin wrote the Happiness.
Gretchen Rubin, yeah,
okay.
Gretchen Rubin, sorry. Yeah, similar to that, the Joy Project, and creating a course alongside that that's called Raise Your Joy Quotient.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if our community can tap into that. Let me know the details.
I will. I will. Thank you.
And Sharon, what's cooking for you today?
Well, I'm working on doing some virtual presentations that we hope will be able to still bring a lot of value and joy really to others. I think that we're all learning how to connect like this. And I think it's an amazing time to be living when we are, to have this ability to connect through technology. When you think about a century ago in our country, there was none of that. Even 10 years ago, we couldn't have done this. So taking advantage of those tools that we have and making the best use of them.
Absolutely. All right. Well, both your ladies, our links and websites are down below. So please reach out if you want to reach them and talk about their programs and have a conversation. So have a great day, you guys. And thank you
so
again.
much.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Cheryl.